The alien court was full of light, music, and cruel laughter. The alien baron sat on his tall throne made of black crystal, his sharp eyes scanning the humans brought before him. His people, tall and strong with silver skin, stood around him. They looked down on the smaller, weaker humans. To them, humans were nothing but servants, tools, or jokes. On this night, the baron had prepared a special humiliation. He called for one human soldier, a young man who had fought bravely but was captured. The soldier stood firm, refusing to bow. His uniform was torn, but his spirit was unbroken. The baron noticed this and smiled in a mocking way. "Humans," the baron said loudly, his voice echoing through the hall. "You think you are strong, but you are weak. You think you are clever, but you are nothing. I will show my people how useless you are." He raised his hand. From behind him, guards led forward a young alien girl. She was small, her eyes deep and full of quiet sadness. Everyone in the hall whispered when they saw her. It was the baron's daughter, but something was strange. She did not speak. She only lowered her head and stood silently. The baron laughed. "This is my daughter. She is mute. She has never spoken a single word in her life. Even our healers, even our machines cannot make her voice work. She is a disappointment to me. She is useless. So tonight I give her to a human." The hall roared with laughter. The aliens clapped their hands, some pounding the tables. They thought this was the greatest insult. To give a noble daughter, even a mute one, to a human, it was a shame, a joke, a cruel game. The soldier's face hardened. His fists tightened, but he said nothing. The baron looked at him with a mocking smile. "Take her, human, she is yours. Do whatever you like. Maybe you will teach her something, though I doubt it. If you cannot even make her speak, then you are as weak as I always knew." The soldier looked at the girl. She looked back at him, her eyes wide, as if she wanted to say something but couldn't. Her silence was heavy, heavier than the loud laughter around them. For a moment it was as if the entire hall disappeared, and only the soldier and the mute girl existed. The baron snapped his fingers. Guards pushed the soldier forward and placed the girl in his care. "Take her away," the baron ordered. "Let the galaxy see how low humans stand." The laughter grew louder. Some aliens threw pieces of fruit at the soldier as he left. Others shouted insults, but he kept his head high. He would not give them the pleasure of seeing him break. The mute daughter walked beside him. She did not stumble. She did not resist. She simply moved with him, quiet as a shadow. When they reached the long corridor outside the hall, the noise of the court faded. The soldier finally spoke, his voice low but steady. "I am not your enemy," he told her. "I don't know why. He gave you to me, but I will not treat you like they do." The girl stopped walking. She turned to him slowly. Her eyes were dark, shining with something strange. She looked straight into his soul. He waited for her to do something, anything. She only raised her hand, hesitated, then pointed to her throat. Her fingers pressed there as if she wanted to speak but could not. The soldier understood. "You want to speak?" he asked softly. Her eyes widened again. She nodded once. His heart beat faster. The baron had called her useless, had mocked her in front of everyone. But the way she looked at him now, it was not uselessness. It was not weakness. It was fire, hidden deep inside her silence. For the first time since his capture, the soldier felt something powerful. Hope. The girl touched his hand gently. Her touch was light, almost trembling, but it carried meaning. It was not the touch of someone broken. It was the touch of someone waiting. He whispered, "I will help you." Behind them, the echo of alien laughter still rolled through the halls. But the soldier no longer heard it. He only saw the mute girl and the strange mystery in her eyes. And for a brief moment he thought, maybe this was not a curse. Maybe this was the beginning of something far greater. The baron thought he had mocked humanity. The baron thought he had given away something worthless. But he had unknowingly set in motion a story that would shake his entire world. The mute daughter would not stay silent forever, and when she finally spoke, the galaxy itself would tremble. The human soldier was taken from the hall with the Baron's mute daughter beside him. The mocking laughter of the aliens still echoed in his ears. But outside the throne room, the palace was quiet, filled with tall stone walls and glowing blue lights that hummed like a heartbeat. Guards led him and the girl to a chamber. It was not a prison, yet it felt like one. A single window looked out over the alien city, with towers that rose like claws against the sky. Flying machines moved between them like silent birds of metal. The guards shoved the soldier inside. The girl followed quietly, her long white robe brushing the floor. Then the door slammed shut behind them. For the first time, they were alone. The soldier looked around the room. No weapons, no food, no tools. Only a bed, a table, and the strange glowing crystals the aliens used for light. The silence was heavy. The girl stood near the window gazing at the city as if she were searching for something beyond the towers. The soldier sighed. So, this is it. They gave you to me like a broken gift. He paused, then added softly, "But you're not broken, are you?" She turned, her eyes locking onto his. Again, she raised her hand to her throat, pressing lightly as if to show the pain of silence. "I know," he whispered. "You want to speak?" She nodded once. The soldier sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time since his capture, he felt the weight of everything. His people were scattered, captured, or dead. He was far from home, far from Earth. And now he was given the responsibility of this girl, a responsibility meant to shame him. It was a cruel burden, yet something in her eyes made it feel like more than a punishment. The next day, alien servants brought them food, strange fruits, glowing drinks, pieces of meat from creatures he did not know. The servants laughed at the soldier, pointing at him like he was an animal in a cage. But the girl did not laugh. She pushed the plate toward him first, as if offering it with quiet respect. It was a small gesture, but it surprised him. Later, when the guards left, he tried to teach her something simple. He picked up a fruit, pointed to it, and said slowly, "Food." She watched him carefully. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came. Still, her eyes sparkled with determination. She copied his hand gesture. Then she picked up the fruit and held it toward him. He smiled. Yes, food. It was not speech, but it was a beginning. Days passed. The soldier tried to teach her more. Simple, human words, gestures, even drawings scratched onto the table with a piece of crystal. She listened, always silent but always watching. At night, when the palace grew dark, he sometimes heard her whispering. Not full words, not even sounds, just broken breaths, as if her throat fought against her silence. It was painful to hear, yet it filled him with hope. One night, he woke to find her sitting beside the window again. Moonlight from the alien sky painted her face in silver. She turned to him, raised her hand, and pointed upward toward the stars. "What do you see?" he asked quietly. Her finger moved slowly across the sky, as if tracing constellations only she understood. Then she pressed her hand to her chest, then pointed to him. "You and me?" he asked. Her lips curved into the smallest smile. She nodded. The soldier felt something stir inside him. This girl, this mute daughter who was supposed to be his burden, was beginning to trust him. But there was more. He could feel it. The way she looked at the stars was not the gaze of a helpless child. It was the gaze of someone carrying a secret, something her father did not understand, something the galaxy itself might not be ready for. Still, the burden weighed on him. The aliens mocked him every chance they had. When he walked through the palace with her, guards would laugh, whispering, "The human pet takes care of the broken one." Some threw scraps at him. Others bowed mockingly, calling him noble teacher. The soldier kept his head down. He refused to give them his anger, but every insult was a wound. At night, when he was alone with her, he sometimes spoke honestly. "They think you are useless. They think I am weak. Maybe they're right. Maybe I can't change anything here." But each time she would look, at him with steady eyes. No words, no sound, only her gaze, fierce and unshaken. And somehow it gave him strength. One evening, something unexpected happened. A servant entered the chamber to deliver food. He sneered at the soldier and tossed the plate on the floor. The soldier clenched his fists, but stayed calm. But the girl moved suddenly. She stepped forward, knelt, and picked up the plate. She placed it gently on the table, then stood tall, staring at the servant with cold eyes. The servant froze. For the first time, he seemed nervous under her silent gaze. He muttered something and left quickly. The soldier watched in shock. "You scared him," he whispered. The girl turned to him, her lips pressed together, her eyes burning. She placed her hand on her throat again, then raised her fist and held it tightly in the air. It was a gesture of strength. The soldier's breath caught. "You're not weak at all, are you?" For the first time she smiled. Not small, not faint, but a real smile. And in that smile, he saw something terrifying and wonderful. She was not his burden. She was his ally. And together, their silence and strength would become something far greater than either of them understood. The palace was never silent. Even at night, the hum of alien machines, the footsteps of guards, and the distant cries from prisoners filled the air. But inside the chamber, the soldier and the mute daughter had begun to form their own quiet world. A world of hand gestures, drawn symbols, and small sparks of understanding. Still, the soldier knew their world could not last forever. He felt eyes on him wherever he walked. He felt the weight of whispers behind his back. Something dangerous was moving in the shadows of the palace. One evening, while walking through the lower halls with the girl, he noticed two alien servants talking in hushed voices. They stopped the moment they saw him, pretending to bow. But he caught a word before they turned away. "Rebellion." The soldier froze. Rebellion? Against the Baron? The thought lingered with him for days. He began to notice it more. Servants exchanging strange looks, guards speaking softly when they thought no one listened. There was a tension in the air, like storm clouds gathering before a strike of lightning. And always the girl noticed it too. Her dark eyes followed the whispers. She seemed to understand them even when no words were spoken aloud. One night, as the city slept, the soldier sat by the window. The alien stars burned cold above him. He whispered to himself, "If they are planning rebellion, maybe there is hope for my people too." He felt a soft touch. The girl had come to stand beside him. She raised her hand, pointed at the city, then made a slicing gesture across her throat. The soldier blinked. "You mean danger? Blood?" She nodded once, her expression grave. Then she pressed her hand against her chest, then against his before pointing again toward the city. "You and me, together in this?" he asked quietly. Her silence was sharper than words. She nodded again. Days later, a servant delivered food to their chamber. This one was different, an older alien with tired eyes. When the guards left, he leaned closer to the soldier and whispered in a broken accent, "The Baron is hated. Many want him gone, but no one dares move. Fear controls us." The soldier's heart raced. He opened his mouth to speak, but the servant shook his head quickly. "Say nothing. Listen only. The daughter, she is more than you think." Before, the soldier could ask what that meant. The servant hurried away, leaving him and the girl in silence. The soldier turned to her. She was staring at the door, her face pale but her eyes burning with fire. "What does he mean?" the soldier asked. "More than I think? What do you carry, girl?" She only pressed her fingers to her throat again, harder this time, as if fighting against her silence. Then she turned away, her shoulders trembling. The soldier felt a chill. There was something she was not telling him. The whispers of rebellion grew louder in the days that followed. In the marketplace below the palace, humans and aliens alike were restless. Prices of food rose, punishments grew harsher, and soldiers patrolled the streets more aggressively. The Baron's rule was cracking, even if he pretended it was unshakable. The soldier began to hear stories from guards who let their tongues slip. Entire villages were rising in anger. Secret symbols were carved into the walls at night, circles with lines through them, marks of the underground. And still, the girl stayed by his side, silent, but watchful. One night, she surprised him. She took his hand and dragged him toward the table. With a piece of broken crystal, she carved a shape into the wood, a circle with a line through it. The soldier gasped. "That's their mark." She nodded. He stared at her. "You know them, don't you?" Her silence was an answer in itself. A few days later, something happened that shook the palace. A guard was found dead, his armor stained with black blood. The Baron ordered the entire city searched. Dozens were arrested, some executed in the square. Fear spread like fire, but so did the whispers. The rebellion had struck its first blow. That night, the soldier lay awake. He could not sleep. The girl sat near him, her eyes fixed on the stars. Suddenly, she whispered something. It was not a word, just a sound, broken and fragile. The soldier's heart stopped. "Say it again," he urged. She tried, her lips trembling, her throat shaking. This time it was clearer, a faint sound, almost like free. The soldier's eyes widened. She had spoken. Not fully, not perfectly, but enough. He leaned closer. You can speak. You're trying." Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded fiercely. In that moment, the soldier understood. She was not just the Baron's daughter. She was a key. Her voice, hidden for so long, carried something powerful, something that could change everything. The next day, the Baron held a feast. His voice thundered across the hall, mocking the rebellion. "No one can defeat me," he roared. "Those who try will be crushed. Even my daughter cannot speak against me." The hall laughed. But in the shadows, the soldier and the mute daughter shared a look. The world thought she was broken. But the soldier knew the truth now. She was not broken. She was waiting. And when she finally spoke, it would not just be to her father. It would be to an entire people ready for change. The whispers of rebellion would soon turn into a storm. The palace had become a prison of silence. Guards walked the halls with heavy boots, their armor glowing faint red, their eyes cold. The Baron's voice echoed often through the city, loud speeches, cruel commands, endless threats. He spoke of power, of fear, of control. But in one small chamber hidden behind thick stone walls, another sound began to grow. The soldier sat at the table, scratching lines into the surface with a piece of crystal. Across from him sat the mute daughter, her hands folded, her dark eyes shining. Between them on the rough wood were drawings, a mouth, a throat, the shape of a human word. "Try again," the soldier said softly. His voice was calm, steady, almost patient. The girl placed her fingers on her throat. She opened her mouth. For a moment, only air escaped. Then faintly a broken sound. The soldier leaned forward. "Yes, that's it." Again. She tried. The sound was sharper this time, still weak but stronger than before. Her face twisted in effort, her lips trembling. Sweat gathered at her brow, but she did not stop. When her voice cracked, she shook her head in frustration. The soldier reached across the table, gently touching her hand. "Don't stop. You're not failing. You're fighting. Every sound is a victory." Her eyes softened. She nodded once. Their secret training continued every night. By day, they acted as if nothing had changed. In the presence of guards and servants, the girl stayed silent, her face calm and unreadable. But when the doors closed and only the soldier was with her, she became someone else. She became determined. They started with the simplest words: food, star, free. Each time she tried, her voice cracked, fragile as glass. But slowly the cracks began to mend. Slowly, her silence broke. The soldier used stories from Earth. He told her about blue oceans, green forests, and the sound of birds in the morning. She listened with wide eyes, her lips moving as if tasting each new word. When she managed to whisper, "Ocean," her smile lit up the room. For the first time, the soldier felt warmth in a place built from cruelty. But their secret was dangerous. One evening, as they trained, a shadow moved beneath the door. The soldier froze. The girl saw it too. Both of them stayed silent. After a long moment, the shadow vanished. The soldier whispered, "They're watching us." The girl's hands trembled, but then she clenched them into fists. She pointed to her throat, then to the sky beyond the window. He understood. She would not stop no matter who watched. The days grew darker in the city. The rebellion outside grew louder, but so did the punishments. Fires burned in the streets and the sound of executions carried across the rooftops. The Baron's voice thundered in anger, promising to destroy every traitor. Inside the chamber, the girl whispered new words each night. Her voice was still weak, but it was real. One night she surprised him. After hours of effort, she suddenly spoke a full word. Clear. Sharp. Father. The soldier froze. His heart raced. You said it. You spoke." Her face was pale, her lips trembling, but her eyes burned with fire. She whispered again, louder this time. "Father." Tears slipped down her cheeks, but they were not tears of pain. They were tears of victory. The soldier could barely breathe. "You've done it. You've broken the silence." But the girl was not finished. The next day, during their secret training, she struggled again. Each word seemed like a battle. Yet with every attempt, her voice grew stronger. Sometimes she failed. Sometimes her voice vanished completely, leaving her shaking with frustration. In those moments, the soldier sat beside her and whispered, "Even silence is progress. You are stronger than he knows." She stared at him with eyes full of something more than determination. Something like trust. Something like hope. One evening, she tried something new. Instead of repeating human words, she pointed to herself and whispered, "Name." The soldier blinked. "You want me to give you a name?" She nodded fiercely. He thought for a long moment. Then he whispered, "Hope. That's what you are to me." "Hope." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. She whispered, broken but clear, "Hope." The soldier's chest tightened. For the first time since his capture, he felt like he was not alone in this alien world. But danger was closing in. One night as they trained, the door to their chamber burst open. A guard entered, his eyes sharp. He glanced at the table, at the drawings, at the soldier's tense posture. The girl quickly lowered her head, pretending to be silent and broken. The soldier forced his face to remain calm. The guard sneered. "The Baron grows impatient. He wants to test her again tomorrow night at the feast." The soldier's blood ran cold. He nodded silently. The guard left. As the door shut, the girl raised her head. Her eyes were steady, fearless. She whispered, weak but clear, "Ready." The soldier shook his head. "No, not yet. If you fail." She placed her hand on his, silencing him. Then she whispered again, stronger this time, "Ready." The soldier stared at her, heart pounding. For the first time, he believed she was right. The Baron thought tomorrow would humiliate them again, but tomorrow something impossible might happen. The girl was ready to speak, and her first true voice could shake the palace to its core. The next evening, the palace burned with light and noise. The Baron had called another grand feast. Long tables, overflowed with strange meats, glowing fruits and tall cups of black wine. Alien nobles filled the hall, their silver skin shining under the crystal lamps. Their voices rose in laughter, cruel and sharp. At the center, the Baron sat high on his throne, his eyes colder than steel. He raised a jeweled cup and spoke in a voice that shook the walls. "My people, tonight I will show you again the weakness of humans. And I will show you that even blood of my own cannot rise above failure." The nobles cheered, clapping their hands against the table. They lived for these displays, for the humiliation of others. The soldier stood at the edge of the hall, the mute daughter beside him. She wore a white robe, her face calm, her hands folded. But he could see the faint tremble of her fingers. She was ready, but she was afraid. He whispered softly so no one could hear. Remember what you've practiced. You are stronger than he knows. Her eyes flickered toward him, just for a moment, before turning back to her father. The Baron slammed his cup down. The hall grew silent. "Daughter," he said, his voice sharp as a blade. "Come forward." She stepped slowly into the center of the hall. The nobles watched with hungry eyes. Some whispered bets on how she would fail. Others laughed already, expecting nothing but silence. The Baron rose to his full height. He spread his arms wide. "Bokune, all these years this one has been mute. A shadow of a child ashamed to my name. Even with the best healers, the finest machines, she has never spoken." He pointed at the human soldier, his smile cruel. "And now, given to a human, still she remains silent. Do you see? Humans cannot fix what even we cannot. They are useless, powerless beneath us." The nobles roared with laughter. Some slammed their fists against the tables, shouting insults at the soldier. The Baron leaned forward, his eyes glowing with mockery. "But tonight, for my amusement, I give her one last chance. Speak, daughter, speak if you can. Show my people your voice, or prove forever you have none." The hall went still. Every eye turned to her. She stood in the center, her small hands shaking. Her lips parted. Air rushed through her throat, but no sound came. The nobles burst into laughter. "She cannot," one shouted. "She is broken," cried another. "The human has failed." The Baron smiled, cruel and proud. "Do you see? Worthless." The soldier's fists clenched. His heart pounded as he stared at her. He wanted to shout encouragement, but he dared not. One wrong move and they both would be killed. The girl's chest rose and fell quickly. Her face was pale. Tears gathered at the corners of her eyes. She looked at her father, then at the laughing crowd, then at the soldier. And in that moment, something changed. She lifted her chin. Her trembling stopped. She pressed her hand to her throat. Her lips moved again, this time forcing a broken sound into the air. It was faint, cracked, almost painful, but it was real. The laughter stopped for a second. The hall grew quiet, surprised by the sound. The Baron narrowed his eyes. What was that? A cry? A whimper? The girl tried again. A second sound came, sharper than the first. She almost formed a word, but her voice broke halfway. The nobles began to laugh again, louder than before. "Pathetic," one shouted. "She squeaks like an animal." The Baron raised his hand. "Enough. She has proven what I always knew. Silence is her only gift. The human has failed, as I expected. Take them both away." Guards moved forward. The soldier felt his stomach twist. He looked at her and saw the pain in her eyes. She had tried. She had come so close. And yet before this cruel court it was not enough. But then, something happened. As the guard stepped closer, she looked at the soldier one last time. In her gaze, he saw not defeat, but fire. She whispered one sound, so soft only he could hear. Hope. The soldier's breath caught. She had spoken clearly, even if no one else heard. The guards dragged them back toward their chamber. The crowd roared in laughter again, mocking their shame. The Baron returned to his throne, smug and satisfied, but the soldier's heart burned with something new. He had heard her voice. She was closer than ever. They had failed in front of the crowd, but in truth, they had taken one step closer to victory. That night, back in their chamber, the girl collapsed into the chair, her body trembling. She covered her face with her hands. The soldier knelt beside her. "You did it," he whispered fiercely. "I heard you. They laughed, but I know the truth. You are breaking the silence." She lowered her hands, tears shining in her eyes. Slowly, she whispered again, broken but strong enough to be real. "Hope." The soldier gripped her hand tightly. Yes, hope. And in that moment he knew the Baron had made his greatest mistake. By trying to shame them, he had pushed her closer to her first true voice. And when that voice finally rose, it would not be in whispers. It would be thunder. The night after the feast, the palace was colder than ever. The soldier sat in the corner of their chamber, his fists clenched, his heart heavy. He could still hear the cruel laughter of the nobles, still see the Baron's proud smile as he mocked his daughter. Kyukitur, girl sat by the window staring out at the alien city. Her white robe glowed faintly under the blue light of the crystals. She looked fragile, almost breakable, but her eyes told a different story. They burned with quiet fire. The soldier finally broke the silence. You almost did it. They laughed, but I know the truth. I heard your voice. She turned her head slowly, meeting his gaze. Her lips parted. This time she did not whisper. Her voice was weak, shaking, but it was real. Father. The soldier froze. The word was broken, but it was clear. His breath caught in his throat. He felt the air in the room shift as if the walls themselves had heard her. You spoke, he whispered, his voice trembling. You really spoke. Tears welled in her eyes, but they were not tears of weakness, they were tears of victory. She pressed her hand to her chest, then to her throat, as if claiming the sound as her own. From that night, everything changed. Their training became fiercer. No longer was it only broken whispers or faint sounds. Each night, she pushed herself harder, forcing words from her throat. The soldier guided her gently, repeating words until she could form them, cheering each small success. Star, he said. Star, she whispered back. Free, he said. Free, she answered, her voice cracking but determined. Hope, he said. Hope, she breathed, and this time it came strong, almost proud. Every word was a battle, every sound a victory. The soldier could feel it. The impossible was happening. She was learning to speak, but danger grew with every word. One night as they trained, heavy footsteps echoed in the hall outside. The soldier quickly covered the table with his cloak, hiding their drawings of words. The girl went silent, folding her hands. The door opened. A guard stepped inside, scanning the room with narrow eyes. The Baron grows restless, he said coldly. He will test her again soon. If she fails, both of you will pay the price. The soldier said nothing. He only bowed his head. The guard left. The girl turned to him, her face pale but her eyes fierce. She whispered, her voice trembling but real. Ready. The soldier shook his head. Not yet. Your voice is still weak. But she only repeated, louder this time. Ready. He stared at her, stunned. He had seen humans stand fearless in battle. He had seen soldiers fight to their last breath. But this silent girl, once mocked as useless, now carried the same fire. The next day, something strange happened. A servant came with food, his face pale. As he placed the tray down, he leaned close and whispered, The people watch her. They whisper she may not be broken after all. Be careful, the Baron suspects. Before the soldier could respond, the servant slipped away. The soldier's chest tightened. If the Baron discovered their secret training, their lives would be over. But he also knew the truth. If the girl could speak clearly, she might ignite something greater than survival. She might ignite rebellion. That night the breakthrough came. The soldier sat with her as always, repeating words, guiding her. She struggled, coughed, pressed her throat. Frustration clouded her face. She shook her head and turned away, her fists tight. The soldier reached for her hand. Don't stop. You're closer than you know. She looked at him, her eyes wet. Then she inhaled deeply as if gathering all the strength in her body. Her lips parted. Her voice came out, not broken, not cracked, but strong. Father. The soldier's eyes widened. He leaned closer. Say it again. She did, stronger this time. Father. It was clear. It was undeniable. The soldier felt his chest swell with pride and shock. The impossible had happened. The mute daughter had spoken a full word. She fell back in her chair, exhausted but smiling through her tears. The soldier knelt before her. "You've done it. You've beaten the silence." She whispered, softer but steady. "Not broken." The soldier's throat tightened. He pressed his hand against hers. "No. You were never broken. You were waiting. And now, the galaxy will hear you." The following morning, the city seemed different. The soldier noticed it as soon as he looked out the window. The people moved with unease. Guards marched with sharper steps. Whispers spread like fire in the streets below. The Baron's daughter was becoming a symbol, though she had not yet spoken before the world. The rebellion stirred, waiting for something, anything to spark the flames, and the soldier knew. That spark was her voice. That night, as they sat together in silence, the girl whispered again, her voice still fragile but filled with certainty. "Soon." The soldier nodded, his eyes burning. "Yes, soon." Yes. For the first time since his capture, he did not feel like a prisoner. He felt like a soldier again, not fighting with weapons but with hope. The Baron thought he had mocked humanity, but his mockery had become the seed of his downfall, because his mute daughter was no longer silent. And when her voice rose before them all, it would not only shatter the Baron's pride, it would change the fate of the galaxy. The palace was alive with noise. The Baron had called every noble, every warrior, every loyal servant to a feast larger than any before. Long banners of black and silver hung from the ceiling. Flames burned in tall bowls. The smell of roasted meat and sharp wine filled the air. But beneath the laughter and music, tension rippled through the hall. The rebellion outside was growing bolder. Entire districts had risen in protest. Soldiers patrolled the streets day and night. Fear was in the air, and the Baron wanted to crush it with one display of power. At the center of the hall, the Baron stood tall, his sharp voice silencing the crowd. "My people," he shouted. "Traitors spread whispers in the dark. They think rebellion will save them. They think hope will protect them. But hope is nothing, strength is everything, and tonight I will prove it once more." He raised a hand. Guards shoved the human soldier and the mute daughter into the hall. Gasps spread through the nobles. Many leaned forward eagerly. They remembered her last failure. They were ready to laugh again. The soldier stood firm, though his heart pounded. He glanced at the girl beside him. She looked calm, her face pale but steady. Her hands were folded, but her eyes burned like fire. The Baron sneered. "Here she is, my daughter, the shame of my blood. Mute, broken, worthless. Even given to a human, she remains silent. Tonight, before you all, I will demand once more. And when she fails, you will see that weakness cannot be healed." The hall grew silent. The nobles leaned in. The Baron pointed at her, his voice thundering. "Speak, daughter, if you can. Speak and prove me wrong." The soldier's stomach twisted. He wanted to cry out encouragement, but he dared not. He could only meet her gaze. She looked at him once, just once, and in her eyes he saw something unshakable. She stepped forward. The hall waited, breathless. The girl lifted her chin, her lips parted. For a moment, there was only silence. The nobles grinned, ready to laugh. The Baron smiled, certain of his victory. Then it happened. A sound rose from her throat, weak at first but real, then stronger, clear. "Father." The hall froze. The word echoed through the crystal walls. Gasps spread like fire. Nobles stood in shock. Servants dropped their cups. Even the guards stared, unable to move. The Baron's face darkened. His hands trembled. "No," he whispered. The girl's voice wavered, but she pressed on. She raised her hand, pointing at the soldier. Her next word came louder. "Human." The crowd erupted in noise. Gasps, shouts, disbelief. A human had awakened her voice where the greatest alien healers had failed. The Baron roared, "Silence, her." But before the guards could move, she lifted her hands high. Her voice rose again, weak but filled with power. "Hope. The hall went dead silent. The word hung in the air like thunder. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then whispers spread among the nobles. Hope, 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 the forbidden word. The word of rebellion. The Baron's face twisted with rage. He shouted, "She is nothing. Do not listen. She is a trick." But his people no longer laughed. They no longer mocked. Their eyes were wide, their faces pale. Some trembled. Some whispered the word again, almost reverently. Hope. The soldier's chest burned. He could barely breathe. He had heard her in private, but now before the entire court she had spoken. She had defied her father. She had broken chains heavier than iron. The Baron stormed forward, his hand raised as if to strike her, but she did not flinch. She stood tall, her small figure glowing in the firelight, her voice trembling but strong. "I choose my path." Gasps shook the hall again. She had spoken a full sentence. The Baron froze, his hand hanging in the air. His daughter, the one he had mocked, the one he had given away as a cruel joke, had chosen a human over him. The nobles shifted uneasily. Fear flickered in their eyes, but for the first time, so did something else. Respect. The soldier stepped forward, his voice steady. "You called her broken. You called us weak, but she has spoken, and her voice is stronger than your cruelty." The Baron roared in rage. "Guards, kill them both." But the guards hesitated. They had heard her voice. They had felt its power. None of them moved. The hall was no longer his. It belonged to her. The girl raised her voice one final time, louder than before, her words echoing like a storm. "Humans, not weak. Hope will rise." The crowd erupted, not in laughter but in shouts. Some nobles stood, some servants cried out, some guards dropped their weapons. The words spread like fire through the hall. Hope, hope, hope. The Baron's face twisted, with fury. But for the first time he looked small upon his throne. His power had cracked, shattered not by war, but by the voice of the one he had scorned. That night, the galaxy changed. The mute daughter was mute no longer. Her voice had broken centuries of silence. Her words had sparked something greater than rebellion. The soldier looked at her, his chest heavy with pride. She looked back at him, her lips trembling but smiling. Together they had done the impossible, and the Baron, once feared across the stars, now faced something he could not command, could not crush, could not silence. Her voice, a voice born of humanity, a voice that would echo through the galaxy as the beginning of freedom,